going to see therapists, and they would be like, it was one therapist, and then she left, and then another therapist came in, and then they left, and then, it's just like an ongoing process of like, it keeps changing. There's nothing really, nothing really solid or, consistent. And they were always telling me, well, we don't feel like you're ready. And I got mad to a point where I was like, okay, well then what the hell am I doing here then?
That must be very frustrating.
Yeah. And like, I've raised hell. My wife raised hell. And then when she raised hell, they started actually doing something. They put me into the polytrauma services.
Right.
And then they started giving me like speech for my TBI, speech cognitive therapy,
right,
which only lasted for a few weeks, and then they discontinued it. And I was trying to fight, trying to still continue it, and then they had me going to a therapist, and we were supposed to start the CPT, but it was just not really happening. And then so my therapist ended up leaving, and then I ended up moving to Annapolis and then moving over to Baltimore, VA. And then as one thing led to another, I like literally waited for like a month to get like for them to transfer all my stuff over to Baltimore, VA. And it was like a little over a month, really.
Wow.
And at that time I was going with no treatment whatsoever.
No counseling at all.
No counseling at all. So I was pretty much left in the dust. And then I finally like just a few months ago, I went to their actually, I finally got a therapist, and we started doing the CP because I was really direct about it. I was like, I want to do the CPT. And he was like, okay, we'll do that. And then like, we did that for a little bit, and then, it wasn't really helping. I was still going home, and still, the same stuff was still happening. And it just, with CPT, you have to write down everything, and then with the TBI, it doesn't work. It's not easy.
Right.
I don't think it was supposed to be easy, but it was more complicated to do than what they think it was. Especially with TBI, I have a hard time reading and writing anyway. With after Marine Corps, I had a difficult time, and I tried to even go to school. I failed all my classes. And then that's where I realized what my limits were, and what I needed to try to build up. I needed to try to build up my brain and everything before I throw myself into college again. And then like what else? So after a little bit of time of that, like maybe 8 weeks, or less, something happened at home, which landed me into the hospital, which got me, which I only had like, because at this point my wife's had enough with all my PTSD and TBI, behavioral problems. And like, I went to a what's it called? Residential
VA facility.
Residential VA, and the process took 3 months to get to go from the 6A, which is the ward,
mm-hmm.
and then to go to 6A, and then a week and a half at Perry Point's ward, and then they finally put me into the program, which took about 2 weeks, and then they bounced me back over to the Baltimore VA to go to a dual diagnosis program. And the problem with that is I would have never been accepted into a dual diagnosis problem if I didn't have a substance abuse, and my substance abuse was tobacco, which everybody else's was drugs and alcohol. Right. So that took 6 weeks to go through, and I had to sit there and, go through like all the, addiction classes and all this other stuff. And I couldn't relate when I was in there. So, smoking cigarettes is like just normal. Everybody smokes cigarettes in there,
Could you see what Dr. Ernie has now, where you could get on there anytime you wanted to set up your appointment with your counselor and utilize the service, not only just on active duty, but after you leave?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How many other guys could you think of that have similar problems like Dan? You're like your buddy Dan. And the other people you have, that same situation would apply for using his services. And it'd be like this right now. Like you have a counselor, you're sitting there, same thing. So right. You can see yourself and have conversations that you don't have to leave your house.
Yeah.
And also when you go to the VA, you don't have a choice as to who you see and all that. So if somebody you're not really connected with and you're not getting the help, but with us, first of all our therapists are trained in the military culture. But at the same time is you can call me and say, or you send me an email and say, look, this therapist, I've seen him for a couple of months. It's not a good fit or it's not helping me. We'll get you somebody else that will help you right away. Now,
yeah, that'd be awesome.
But your story starts like when would you say, like, what year did you start seeking help? Like, how long ago did you actually start seeking help?
It was 6 months after I got out of the Marine Corps.
Which was what year?
2011.
Yeah.
2011. So we're talking about 3-4 years.
Yeah.
Seeking help and going through waiting periods and back and forth.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And it sucks because while I'm going through this stuff, everybody around me is being torn down too. Like my family. My family's the most important thing to me.
Right.
And there are tons of things I've said and I've done that I regret, and all it does is it puts more guilt on me.
Right.
And it doesn't help.
Well, an additional advantage that we have with being able to provide this kind of service when you can get what you really need from the VA, which is unfortunately way too often, is that when you were in a different location, say with your wife, and you needed to deal with stuff, we can actually do a session with you in one location and your wife on another at home, let's say, and we can do a session just like the two of you on the same screen. I can do 2 of you or 5 of you from different locations and help you work things out with your wife, if you have kids, with the kids, and so on. So there's also, when you move from one location to another, you said you moved from one area to another, well, then you change therapists. If you saw a therapist in one area 2 years ago, and now you move to another location, you have to start the whole process again. With our situation is you keep the same therapist. I don't care where you are in the world. You can be, in Europe for all I care. You can be on the moon. If you can have internet there, you can keep the same therapist. So there's consistency and there's continuity, as opposed to, oh, well, I'm going to move. Now we've got to start the whole process all over again. So
yeah. Another thing, it's almost like a burden going all the way up to Baltimore.
Yeah.
From Annapolis, and it's like 45 minutes to get there,
right.
Especially on days like these or rainy conditions. It sucks.
Yeah. Well, this is what we try to provide. As a matter, I love what you're saying for 2 reasons. I'll tell you. Number one is I need, and Dale, you can help me with that. We want to get more people like Kyle testify, testimonial on what we do. This is a story, a wonderful story to get public. As a matter of fact, I happen to have my video site on record, and I would like to ask you permission if we can use this session, if we can use it, parts of it, and if you don't, I'll just erase the whole thing. But if I can get your permission, to have it more public so people hear your story. We don't need your last name. We can even change names. It doesn't matter. But I had it on record. I didn't want to stop you in the middle of it. I thought, boy, what you're saying is exactly what people need to hear. And
Yeah.
if you're okay with that.
Recording me.
What's that?
It's recording. But yeah, that's fine, Dr. Roney.
No, you got my thumbs up on this, doctor.
Okay. Because if it's okay, if not, I'll just delete it. I'll just push a button and delete.
You should.
And if it's okay, I'll send you a form so you can give me a release form. But your story, it just, we didn't even plan it, right? It just like, I didn't even know you were going to be here when I was stuck in the bill. And it's like, this is the kind of story that I hear all the time. And I want to get about 10, 20 stories like that on videos and put your stories on our website. Put your stories to the public and say, look, this guy's spending 3.5, 4 years and he's still struggling, This is just would be a wonderful thing.
Yeah. We'll put it down on paper and pen and all that stuff, Dr. Roney. But I have plenty of guys to line up like Ty that we could share the same kind of story.
That'd be fantastic. Because we want to help you guys. And I'm in the second. Yeah. Oops, I think you froze on me. Okay, there you go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, because I think we got frozen for a second here. Let me check.
I got plenty of veterans to line up for doing stories, Dr. Roney.